following is a presentation of Learfield IMG College. From the Georgia Southern Sports Network, powered by Learfield IMG College.
Wings up, Eagle Nation! Touchdown, Georgia Southern!
This is Inside Eagle Nation, your all-access look into Eagle athletics.
Taking a look through all the other action in Georgia Southern athletics this past week. A lot of road action. A lot of teams hitting the old I-16 out of town.
Getting on the steel horse and taking us to parts north, south, west, wherever. Can't really go too much farther east.
Now let's return to the Learfield IMG College studios. Here are your hosts, Colin Lacy and Danny Reed.
That's a fact, Jack.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Eagle Nation here all across the Georgia Southern Sports Network, here from Hanner Fieldhouse as we get set for another edition of Inside Eagle Nation. Colin Lacy alongside the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, fresh off a really good week for Georgia Southern baseball, going 4-1, a couple of big games mixed in there. We'll dive into Georgia Southern baseball a little bit later on this edition of Inside Eagle Nation, but March Madness getting underway. NCAA tournament happening. Does it start this weekend?
Starts tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
Because you got the first four games.
Oh, that's right. I
Tuesday,
forgot
Wednesday.
the Dayton games.
Yeah, the Dayton games, and then Thursday is when the Madness officially starts with 16 games.
We will follow March Madness all the way through. You're a big March Madness guy.
Well, everybody gets reacquainted with what a boss button is for March Madness.
Yes.
But yeah, growing up, those first 4 days are like unlike any other 4 days, because quick sidebar, the start of March Madness usually overlapped with a tournament that got hosted, a Catholic high school basketball tournament near my hometown, the ACITs, Alhambra Catholic Invitational Tournament. It had gone away the last 2 years, but it came back this year. They just finished it up. This was a little bit earlier than it usually is, but the NCAA would usually overlap with that, so that was a 3-day tournament from Thursday through Saturday. But with March Madness extending into Sunday, those first 4 days, when you've got 64 becoming 32, becoming 16, you couldn't match the excitement and the build-up to just watch that first tip at about 12, 20-something on Thursday. Everybody just, whatever's going on work-wise, no, I'm just waiting. I'm trying to find a TV. I'm getting my boss button ready. I'm trying to get my multiple screens up because now it's on multiple channels. But this is a very fun time of year, and when you can factor in the start of Sun Belt Conference baseball play, it's even better.
Diving into everything across Georgia Southern athletics. Last Monday and Tuesday, we mentioned it on last week's edition of Inside Eagle Nation, but Georgia Southern men's golf was over at the Colleton River Collegiate last Monday and Tuesday. We mentioned it last week that they were leading going into the final round on Tuesday. They ended up winning the Colleton River Collegiate. Ben Carr shot a bogeyless final round of 65 and tied for fourth place finish overall in the individual side. It's the second time the Eagles have won this event in 3 appearances of this tournament.
And Ben Carr is regarded as one of the top 10 golfers nationally. Yeah. He's getting mighty close to Stephen Fisk territory, and a good time for it because this is the biggest weekend of the year that's outside of the Sun Belt Conference tournament.
Yeah, this is essentially the Masters of college golf, at least in Southeast Georgia. The Schenkel Invitational, Friday through Sunday over at the Forest Heights Country Club. And I know we say it time and time again, if you haven't been able to come out and experience the Schenkel firsthand at Forest Heights, a fantastic host for Georgia Southern Golf and for the Schenkel Invitational. But this is a fantastic tournament that is put on by Georgia Southern Golf. A lot of people around Georgia Southern athletics, big parts of being able to have this tournament here in Statesboro and one of the top tournaments in all of college golf.
I wish we could be here this weekend. We'll be up in Boone with the start of Sun Belt Conference baseball play against Appalachian State. But I think about what happened with the schedule. This would have been the weekend that Georgia Southern would have been in town, because think back to 2017 when App was supposed to host Georgia Southern. It was snowing in Boone. This is my shocked face. They had to come down for that 3-game series. Georgia Southern swept. They came back down in 18. And then it got kind of mixed up even more so when COVID hit, because there were no conference games. That was the week that league play was supposed to start that weekend. So in another world, we would be here this weekend hosting App, but instead got to go to Boone to start league play. Otherwise, we'd be here, maybe get a chance to catch a little bit of it.
So again, App throws a wrench in things.
It's It's getting there.
It's inevitable.
It's
Georgia Southern Track and Field opened up the outdoor season with the Gata Classic over at Eagle Field, just outside Allen E. Paulson Stadium. But the Eagles won 9 events, and in not great weather. It was a little chilly this weekend, as we found out. A lot of wind on Saturday, some rain on Friday, but Georgia Southern Track and Field getting the outdoor season started off in the right way, winning the Gata Classic and won 9 individual events for head coach Kelly Carter and company.
Yeah, you usually don't want to have to hear wind aided in terms of a 100-meter dash or a 4x4 or whatever. But
I'm thinking pole vault.
You don't want to get blown off course too much.
Georgia Southern women's tennis was supposed to be taking on Jacksonville State this past Tuesday at the Wallace Tennis Center. That one gets canceled, and then they fall 4-3 to open up Sunbelt Conference play against Coastal Carolina at the Wallace Tennis Center. They will have a 3-match week. They will host Rhode Island coming up on Thursday, 11 a.m. the first serve at the Wallace Tennis Center, and then they hit the road to the Alabama schools Saturday and Sunday. 11 a.m. first serve each in Mobile on Saturday against South Alabama and against Troy on Sunday over in Troy, Alabama for head coach Sean McCaffrey and company. Georgia Southern men's tennis supposed to be playing Mercer on Friday at the Wallace Tennis Center because of weather. That one gets postponed. It will be made up at some point later in the season, the date TBD as of right now. But then they headed to Birmingham, Alabama on Sunday and got the victory 6-1 over the UAB Blazers on Sunday. They also have South Alabama on Saturday and Troy on Sunday, but those will be here in Statesboro at the Wallace Tennis Center just out front of Hanner Fieldhouse.
Saw the dedication take place this last weekend.
Yeah, had a dedication of Court 3, I believe it was, being able to get a major gift. Ben Rodriguez a big part of that, but the dedication happening this weekend over at the Wallace Tennis Center.
Former Armstrong athlete Faye Kirshner, class of 67. There was a ceremony, pictures taken, so her plaque is now placed on top of Court 3, and she has supported Pirate/Eagle tennis for a long time. And when we talk about things getting named, is there going to be a name on the basketball court? It's Glenn Bryant Field at Allen E. Paulson Stadium. It's Jack Stallings Field at J.I. Clements Stadium. To incorporate an Olympic sport is a cool thing to be able to talk about.
And you talk about Eagles/Pirates with the Armstrong becoming Georgia Southern. We'll get into that a little bit later on when we talk about Mercer a little bit. We'll get into that in a moment. But Georgia Southern softball opened up Sunbelt Conference play in a heck of a way to do so on Friday night. Got the victory 6-4 in 8 innings, had to rally from down early and force extra innings, but get the victory 6-4 over ULM on Friday. And then a crazy game on Saturday. The Eagles led most of the way, but ULM scores 4 in the bottom of the 7th inning to get a 10-9 victory, and then a 10-2 victory for ULM on Sunday in 5 innings. So Georgia Southern 2-1, or 1-2 rather, to start Sunbelt Conference play on the road.
We got some of those look-ins during Game 2. Actually, I guess that would have been on Sunday since we didn't have action. Or what day would that have been?
I don't know. They start to run together at this point, especially when you have a doubleheader. I think it was part of Game 2.
No, it was Saturday because that was Game 1 of our series. We got called off on Friday because of
That's right.
impending weather.
Yep.
But it was Game 2 down there. We knew that softball had taken Game 1 in extra innings, and we got a couple of look-ins. It was going pretty well until that 7th frame when the Warhawks walked off.
A busy week for Georgia Southern and a tough schedule for the Eagles this week. They will have a doubleheader against Mercer up in Macon on Wednesday, 4 o'clock, the first pitch of Game 1. So while Georgia Southern baseball is at Mercer, Georgia Southern softball will be at Mercer.
I would think if the weather cooperates, that should create a even better atmosphere. Because you've already got the beach volleyball courts, you've got the picnic-like atmosphere and the tiered seating beyond right center. But if all that's going on at the same time, that should be pretty hopping up there.
So a 4 o'clock first pitch for Game 1. Again, that a doubleheader for Georgia Southern at Mercer. And then Friday, the number 22 team in the country comes to town in the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns, coming in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 6 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 1 o'clock, the respective days for this weekend against the Cajuns.
That's a chance to really make a statement.
Yeah.
Because if you're going down to Vet Gerard Freed Lamson Park, that's a whole other issue. That's sellout after sellout after sellout. That's an environment that's very tough to duplicate at the Power 5 level. But to have them coming here, It is a younger team, but if they can find a way to put something together this week, starting with Mercer, if those get played, I know the weather may not be that great up in Macon, but that could be an important week for the development of that program.
And if anybody is coming out to Eagle Field this weekend against the Cajuns, make sure you stop the Cajuns radio voice, Steve Peliquin, and get him to tell you the story how he hasn't had water since 1991. Has not had straight water since 1991. He lives
story.
on, what, Diet Coke, I think it is?
Diet Coke.
Fantastic individual.
What I caught up with him during basketball season, it was a split doubleheader in Mobile. Their women were playing South Alabama before Georgia Southern's men were. Sat by him. He had 3 full cans sitting right in front of him. He had his broadcast console, he had the setup, and then he had 3 full cans. He said, "Hey, man, what's good?" Because I'd seen Steven probably 5 years or so with the overlaps.
Fantastic.
He came to Hanner to call the men's game back in 2016, and I maybe have seen him once since then. Just the fact with the overlap and everything else he does, just don't get a chance to be in the same place that often with Steve.
Steve Peliquin, one of the best. He calls women's basketball and Louisiana softball, but the Cajuns come to town for 3 this weekend against Georgia Southern softball. Georgia Southern baseball, we talked about it last week, had a 5-game week. It started up at SRP Park in North Augusta, South Carolina, the home of the Augusta Green Jackets, the now Low A East affiliate of the Atlanta Braves.
There it is.
It still throws me off. I know it's been, a year plus since they realigned everything, but
to me,
the fact that it's still not the Sally League really bothers me.
That's one that's close to me. That's
Yeah.
one that's close to you. Part of your family has worked there, but it is odd to have to think twice to say Low A East instead of just letting South Atlantic League roll
Right.
off because they were in it for so long.
Just sounded a lot better.
But anyway.
But Georgia Southern took on the number 11 Georgia Bulldogs, and it was one that didn't look good early. In the top of the first inning, Georgia scores 5 as they send 8 to the plate. Will Robbins goes 2/3 of an inning, allowing 5 runs. Only 2 of them were earned because of 2 early errors by Georgia Southern. So you go to the bottom of the first inning, down 5-0, and you're thinking, okay, is this one we need to buckle up for? You get 1 in the bottom of the first on a solo home run by Jason Swan, who at that point had homered in 3 straight. And you and I talked about it at the time. The fact of getting just 1 really felt like a big deal for Georgia Southern at the time, especially when you follow that up in the top of the second when Georgia would end up loading the bases, but a big strikeout of Parks Harbor by Brooks Gorman, who came in to finish up the first inning.
Yeah.
That seemed like where the tide started to turn. Eagles get 1 more in the bottom of the second. It's 5-2 Bulldogs. And then in the third inning, Georgia Southern puts it on its heels with a 4 spot in the bottom of the third to make it a 6-5 Eagle lead. And then it was on from there.
You can look at Thompson's 3-run home run with 2 outs in the third inning when the lead was taken back to say great rally, but you don't get there without the run in the first, the shutdown in the top of the second. It was Thompson the inning before with an RBI double to left that got it to within 5-2. But to think that Georgia Southern scores 13 unanswered runs against the number 11 team in the country and the bullpen fires 8 1/3 scoreless in front of nearly 6,000 people. Noah Ledford hits a grand slam in the 4th inning with 2 outs.
To opposite field.
To the opposite field, down the line, barely fair on the first pitch. And that place exploded.
Yeah.
At least the blue and white portion of that place exploded.
And there was a good crowd. The announced attendance just over 5,700 at a ballpark that holds right around 6,000. And so there was a good split. I would say a few more Eagle fans than Bulldog fans, but it was a pretty good split and really felt like almost a tournament atmosphere a little bit especially with Georgia Southern able to score 4 in that bottom of the third inning. Like you talked about, that place went nuts.
Well, the bonus of the setup of North Augusta is the fact that it's about 80 miles for Georgia Southern, just over 100 miles for the Bulldogs. A year ago with Clemson, it was very similar to that, and that was a great game. The crowd wasn't as big, but you had COVID. They were operating at about 30% capacity, even though it got into the bottom of the 9th inning. But to feel it just about full, maybe even a little bit more so, depending on where people were situated in the concourse and on the grassy hills down the lines and all that. But it was a lot of fun the last 2 hours. The first hour and a half, maybe not so much because it took us forever to get there. But once Georgia Southern got settled in and Georgia stopped being able to score against a number of Eagle arms, it was about as good as it could get against the flagship institution.
And we talk about it. They scored 5 in the first inning. They got 3 on in the second inning. Had a couple on in the third, but when Hayden Harris came on in the fourth inning, he was really good. Just a couple of blocks down the street from where he grew up in Grovetown. But when he came in, 2 1/3 innings of work, just 1 hit, no runs, 4 strikeouts over 46 pitches. That's really what seemed like turned the tide and really took the life out of Georgia altogether.
You had to feel that Hayden Harris was going to get a shot in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Because he did the year before, pitched very well against Clemson, a reason why Georgia Southern was able to rally late because he calmed things down. I think he gave up a solo home run over the course of 3 innings during the Tigers that night. But to watch him pitch as well as he has all year, he parlayed that into an even better outing this coming weekend. He's capable of being that guy that can be not just the bridge from the middle to the back. He could be the middle. He could be the bridge. He can close if need be. He had 8 saves in 2019. He saved 10 games in his career. That's not necessarily a role that Georgia Southern has locked down yet.
Yeah.
It may be a by committee kind of deal, but an outing like that shows you that Harris can basically do whatever you need to wherever you are in the game.
Move on to Wednesday when Georgia comes to town after the 13-5 victory for Georgia Southern over number 11 Georgia. At that point, Georgia Southern had beaten both Georgia and Georgia Tech, one of the few losses that both of them have. Both of them in the top 25, both of them in the top 15 in most polls.
Well, I'll do you one better.
Okay.
Latest RPI, and look, we're 16 games in. Pump the brakes a little bit, but for the sake of storytelling, because that's what we're doing here, Georgia Tech is number 1. Georgia's number 2 in the RPI. Georgia Southern's beaten both of them, which is why the Eagles are currently 13th in the RPI.
And I didn't realize this until you and I were talking about it earlier. Georgia Southern has the 4th hardest strength of schedule in the country
at the moment, because the way RPI gets tabulated, what you do, what your opponents do, and what your opponents' opponents do. Extra weight is given to road victories. Now, as far as being a neutral site, they probably looked at that as a home game for Georgia Southern because the Eagles were the home team, occupied the third base dugout, but also a victory over UCF, which they top 60 RPI team at the moment. And that's looking like an even better victory considering that they took down Ole Miss. So that's how the Eagles have been able to build some strength. And with Mercer coming up on Wednesday, weather permitting, Mercer's number 8 in the RPI because they have victories over a number 10 Florida State, a number 13 Georgia Tech. So that's going to be one of the best, if not the best, non-conference games in the entire country coming up on Wednesday in Macon.
Again, it was a 13-5 victory for Georgia Southern on Tuesday at SRP Park. Turn the attention to Wednesday when Georgia comes to Statesboro. It was one that early in the day was a little hit and miss, and even on Tuesday we were talking about didn't know how much of a probability there was to play this game.
I think it'd be played
because of weather coming through the Statesboro area, but as the day went on, the forecast got better and better. Ended up not really being an issue. It did rain during the game, but nothing to stop play. But Georgia Southern exchanging runs with the Bulldogs in the first inning, but a big 4-run third inning by the Bulldogs was the difference in the game. It was a 5-1 victory for Georgia as they even up the season series over Georgia Southern. And a couple of things I want to touch on here, but the biggest one, we've talked about it, and we just mentioned it with Hayden Harris coming in 2 1/3 innings of work on Tuesday in a season that is not what he would have liked early part of the season. Really thought that was going to be a big part of getting his season back on track.
Yeah.
But somebody that came out of the bullpen for Georgia Southern, stepping into a new role, stepping into a role not necessarily comfortable with, Anthony DeMola goes 3 2/3 innings of 1 hit, 6 strikeouts over 52 pitches, and that was fantastic to see. And it really kept Georgia Southern in the game.
against that offense.
Yeah.
They could not figure a way to get the bat on his fastball.
No.
It was reminiscent of Ryan Frederick. Not exactly like it, but with Frederick operating from the right, you've got DeMola coming from the left. For whatever reason, the way that ball moves, Georgia could not tee him up. And it remained a 5-1 game all the way until the later innings. And even though Georgia Southern did strand 11, so they had their chances, if you don't get that kind of effort from DeMola, after Gorman, after Jay, after Javon Ray, and with Jake Martin finishing things up in the 9th inning, you're not in contention to even make that close.
Yeah. You talk about this bullpen, and how they had gone 8 1/3 innings of work of scoreless ball on Tuesday. They ended up going 7 scoreless on Wednesday. Pretty fantastic work out of the bullpen this week for Georgia Southern.
And going into what will be a Wednesday matchup, assuming it gets played, Eagle bullpen has given up 1 earned run in the last 28 2/3 innings.
That'll do.
And this was a bullpen, you weren't sure what it was going to look like when you take away Nick Jones.
Right.
Because it's immediately, okay, you lose a guy with 17 saves. How do you replace him? It might be more in the aggregate, the committee like we talked about before. You know Jay Thompson's down there. He's second in the country in appearances. Sean Rapper, UNC, did pitch on Sunday, so he has 12. Jay has 11, so he'll try to nip at his heels. I know, I was thinking the same thing. But Javon Ray has been terrific lately as well. He has picked up wins in 4 of his last 5 appearances. He is second in the country with 4 victories behind Luke Wagner from Georgia, who we just saw earlier in the week. You're seeing the pieces come together a little bit in a way that maybe you weren't anticipating, and with Mercer Wednesday and league play this weekend, it's a good time for guys to fully recognize those roles.
Move on to the weekend. It's Georgia Southern 1-1 on the week, entering the weekend against William and Mary, a team that came in 5-4 out of the CAA. And Friday, the game has to be pushed back because of weather coming through the Statesboro area, so played a doubleheader on Saturday. We've talked about it a lot over the years, how doubleheaders in college baseball are made to be split.
Yes.
Georgia Southern, for the second straight year, sweeps a doubleheader. And I know this isn't a one out in Norman, Oklahoma against the Sooners. But that was a lot of fun.
That was good.
But Game 1, a 7-3 victory over William and Mary. Game 2, 6-2. We'll get to Game 2 in just a minute because we got to talk about Jalen Payton really setting the tone for this series. Usually the Friday night guy, schedule gets messed up a little bit. He has to move to Saturday in the first part of the doubleheader with the game getting pushed back because of weather. He goes 6 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts over 90 pitches, and that's about everything you could ask for him and more.
After he gave up the lead in the first inning on the single by Jack Cohn, he retires the next 13 batters. He set down 17 of the last 18, and even with Thomas Higgins coming in behind him, they retired 23 of 24 at one point.
Yeah.
And now with Jalen really feeling like he's the number one guy, he's given up 6 hits in 17 and a third innings this year. I don't care who you are and who you're pitching against. That's insane.
And that's also when you're facing, that's including a Tennessee lineup.
Who he gave up 1 hit to.
Right. And we were talking about it on the broadcast, how going back and forth whether Payton should have started the 7th inning.
We'll get there.
But I think Ronnie Hennon brought up a good point when you and I were talking to him on Sunday before the game. The fact that this now becomes a de facto short rest for Payton going into Friday at Appalachian State this coming weekend. Go ahead and get him out there. He went 90 pitches, so it's not like you pulled him early. But I think any other weekend you would have seen Payton go a little bit longer until he got into some trouble.
And the give and the take, when the Eagles got those 4 runs in the bottom of the 6th to make it 7-1, you thought, okay, that might be the cushion to let Jalen go back out. But at the same time, it was a longer inning.
Yeah.
It was chilly. It was under 50 degrees. The wind was blowing 20 to 25, gusting up to 35. So in that instance, maybe it wasn't the best spot to try to extend him. 90 pitches was already a career high, but Thomas Higgins came in, did really well. No earned over his 3 innings, got his first career save. Turned out to be the beginning of a really good pitching story in the doubleheader sweep.
Move on to Game 2. It's a 6-2 victory for Georgia Southern over William and Mary. That would put Georgia Southern at 9-6 on the season. And the starting pitching continues to be the story. Ben Johnson, 6 1/3 innings of no hits, does end up giving up 2 runs on his ledger, but those 2 come across on a bases-loaded hit by pitch, a bases-loaded walk after he had left the ball game. But they are his responsibility, so 2 runs in 6 1/3 innings of work, 5 walks, and 3 strikeouts over 98 pitches, and Ben Johnson looked the best he has all season, hands down.
Career high 6 1/3 innings, career high with 98 pitches, and he did it exclusively out of the stretch.
Yeah.
Didn't see one windup.
Nope.
The first pitch of the game with nobody on, he's going out of the stretch. We're looking at each other thinking, okay, that's a little bit different. And then as we go deeper and deeper into it, remember, Ben didn't give up a run his final 16 2/3 innings last year when he went primarily into late relief. Most of the time, you're coming in with guys on base. You're going out of the stretch. seemed to be where he was most comfortable. So maybe mentally that got him to a point. Now, look, he walked 5, so that's not something you want to be consistent with. But against that offense, no hits over 6 1/3. They tried to get him as deep as they could, realizing what was going on into the 7th inning, but it got to a point you had to get him out of there.
Hayden Harris would come in, a couple of walks. He goes a third of an inning, and then Jay Thompson, of course, comes in to finish off the 7th inning and go the final 2 1/3 innings of work. 1 hit giving up to the William and Mary lineup.
Yep.
It was a double in the 8th inning, and it was one that you were 5 outs away from something special for Georgia Southern that haven't been done since the 1950s. And you would have loved to have seen it, but still a really impressive pitching story for Georgia Southern. The first one-hitter the Eagles have given up since Brian Eichhorn did it against Troy in 2018, and you went back after the game and we're looking at the first combined one-hitter rather for Georgia Southern since 2001.
Dennis Dove was part of that game where 6 different pitchers combined on a one-hitter.
That's impressive.
And I thought about the Eichhorn game and how good he was that night against a 43-win Troy team that went to the NCAA regionals. That was an awesome offense, and Eichhorn was as impressive as could be. I've been a part of quite a few games where the team I was calling for has gotten deep into a no-hitter. Twice, a no-hitter has been taken into the 9th. Once was taken away on an infield single, another on a solo home run. There was another that got taken, I think there was a double, maybe the 7th or 8th inning, but I've been a part of quite a few that have gotten deep but have never finished. I've been on the wrong side of it. I've been no-hit by another team and wasn't terribly excited about it, even though it was a no-hitter, so I guess you may never see another one. But you start to feel things happening as well as the defense played throughout those 2 days. You would have loved to have seen it. The last one was 1950 Clyde Little against Jacksonville. But to hold an offense to 1 hit after just 2 hits in the first game with a pitching staff that is trying to find itself, that can be a doubleheader where, hey, I think we know who we are.
And in a doubleheader where you only have to use 3 guys out of the bullpen, that's one of the biggest wins of the season, especially the way the Eagles have had to use a lot of pitching because the starting pitching hasn't necessarily gone deep. When you get 6 out of Jalen Payton, 6 1/3 out of Ben Johnson, that definitely helps. But only having to use 3 guys out of the bullpen in a doubleheader in both games, that sets you up really well for Sunday. It ended up being a 7-3 victory again for Georgia Southern on Sunday. Javon Ray gets the victory. Danny Madden goes 3 innings of work, gave up 2 runs. Brooks Gorman comes in, Javon Ray, Jake Martin, Anthony DeMola again with a big strikeout. He only has to throw 3 pitches to get it. And then Jay Thompson, of course, has to come in to finish it off for the final 3. But even with Madden only going 3 innings and didn't necessarily look his best, but it's still a really good pitching weekend for Georgia Southern, including Sunday.
4 of those relievers, Gorman, Ray, Martin, Thompson, threw 3 times in 5 games.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is what you have to do, but when you can incorporate a DeMola the way that happened on Wednesday for him to go 3 2/3, 6 strikeouts, and then pick up another strikeout when UAB, or William and Mary, not UAB, this isn't 2021
They looked
anymore.
like UAB.
They did a little bit with the color scheme, but they had 2 guys on in the 8th inning. DeMola comes in, throws 3 pitches, strikes out pinch hitter Goranson, and then to be able to finish off that sweep with Jay, 1-8 out of 9.
7-3 the victory for Georgia Southern. They improved to 10-6 on the season.
Oh, Sammy, double squeeze.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I do want to make sure.
Trust me, we're not overlooking that one.
Okay.
You
Got
go
excited. Got excited.
I know. You go to the 8th inning, and it was Sunday's game was a weird game. You had William and Mary batting out of turn.
Yeah, they did.
Jack Cohn came to the plate, who was pitching when it was supposed to be David Hogarth, and weird things happened during this game. But you get 2 on to lead off the 8th inning. Cheryl walks, Swan singles. You have runners on the corners. Avant puts down a sacrifice bunt down the first base line, and you're thinking, okay, it's a patented Georgia Southern safety squeeze.
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl doesn't come home. It's still a sacrifice for Avant because Swan moves to second, so now you've got second and third, and you're thinking, okay, you've got Sammy Blancato coming in to pinch hit because J.C. Peacher had pinch run for Noah Ledford the inning prior, and you're thinking, all right, what is this going to be another squeeze opportunity? What's going to happen? Because Sammy's one of those that you could go either way, let him hit away, what you're going to do. Sammy squares around the bunt. It gets a really good bunt down the first base line. It's fielded, throw on to first. You know that Sherrill is going to score. And then you look up after you see the out recorded and Swan's coming across the plate. You're like, holy cow, what had just happened? A double squeeze for Georgia Southern.
And it wasn't just that it was a suicide squeeze, because you could feel Sherrill bearing down. So he was going to come in if the ball was put in play. But it was also Swan off from second.
Yeah.
It was a double steal from second and third. Now, you had to get the bunt down to make that so, which he did, got the out at first, but the fact that Swan never stopped, those were your insurance runs, and it clearly meant that they were setting up the double squeeze the entire time.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not.
Definitely not.
But Georgia Southern gets...
Worked out, though.
Yeah, it did. Georgia Southern gets back-to-back series victories and series sweeps on the weekends, the past 2 weekends. The first against Miami of Ohio last weekend, then this past weekend getting 3 from William and Mary to set up Georgia Southern with a 10-6 record going into a week where you start Sun Belt Conference play this weekend against Appalachian State. But first, weather permitting, the forecast doesn't look great for Wednesday up in Macon against Mercer. High 80s, chance of rain. It's just a matter of how much rain.
Yeah.
But it's a Mercer team that, like you talked about, a very high RPI team, 15-1 overall. The schedule is not, I don't want to say not challenging, but it's a schedule that is a little bit easier in the front half. They'll get a couple of really good opponents coming up in the next few weekends.
Yeah.
But they swept a 3-game series against Eastern Kentucky.
Cody Wofford.
Oh, Woff.
I was waiting.
Then they swept a 2-game midweek series against Florida A&M. Swept a 3-game or took 2 out of 3 from SIU Edwardsville. Beat Florida State on a midweek.
Walk-off.
Swept 3 against UNC Asheville. Defeated Georgia Tech.
Walk-off.
And then just demolished St. Peter's University this weekend. That was not even fun.
We talked about that one during William and Mary saying, and we actually talked about it with Brian and Travis that Thursday morning on East Georgia's morning show, that, look, they went into the weekend 12-1. I didn't want to try to forecast the future, but St. Peter's, a program that struggled for a long time, that was going to be a pretty easy chance to take 3, and when you win them by a combined 58-4, that shows you how overmatched St. Peter's was in those 3 games.
Yeah, they had moved up Friday night's game to a Friday afternoon game, and then a doubleheader on Sunday. Friday, they won 17-4. The doubleheader, 19-0 in Game 1, 22-0 in Game 2.
And those were 7-inning games.
Oh.
Yeah.
But all of that against St. Peter's. You set up for Georgia Southern on Wednesday, and then they'll have a very challenging and very tricky travel schedule.
Let's start in Macon.
So they'll be in Macon against Georgia Southern on Wednesday. Yep. They will head south this weekend to go to USF down in Tampa.
Okay.
Couple of midweek games up in Macon again. Okay, you're back up here. You're going to need a long arm for this one.
Yeah, I'm worried.
On Friday of next week, they go to Salt Lake, Utah for the University of Utah. Keep on. Yeah, there you go. Come back for a Tuesday midweek against Georgia State, and then go up to South Orange, New Jersey to take on Seton Hall.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So they're going to be all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
But the only thing that Georgia Southern really cares about right now is they will play on Wednesday, or scheduled to play on Wednesday, 6 o'clock the first pitch from Ortho Georgia Park up in Macon. And it's a team, a lot of the same names that you've seen for the last couple of years, Trevor Austin, but a really good hitting team. Obviously, the ballpark a little bit more conducive to it. They've already hit already hit 37 home runs, 169 runs in 16 games, so over 10 runs a game, 321 average as a team. It's always a team under Craig Gibson that you know is going to be very fundamental. They're going to hit, and the pitching is follow along to the tune of a 2.35 ERA.
So some quick math. A third of their runs on the season just came in the last 3 games. They can hit regardless, but the fact that they just scored 58 runs in 3 games out of their 169 total, that gets them to averaging 10 runs per game. And the last time we saw Mercer, it was May up in Macon. 3 of the top 4 hitters in the lineup are not there anymore. I'm talking order, not necessarily average. R.J. Yeager, their great shortstop, transferred to Mississippi State. Garrett Delano finished up his eligibility. The top 6 guys in the order are all back from last year, but the bottom 3, all newbies. But the one that we're going to be talking plenty about the next few years is Tracy Hughes.
Yeah.
He has taken over in left field. He bumps Colby Thomas over to right. He is a whole other story. But with Tracy Hughes, somebody that already has a grand slam, he's hitting north of 400 for a team that's batting over 320 collectively. He reminds me a lot of Trey Truitt. Remember him from 2018? Yeah. Had that 5-hit game at J.I. Clements Stadium, just super athletic, could do anything that you asked him to do. Of course, Kyle Lewis played there in 2016.
Really?
I believe he did. Golden Spikes winner, he spoke at their preseason banquet up in Macon, and they're off to their best start in school history.
Yeah.
The schedule always is nice to them, and it's even better. They played all those games at home.
Right.
That 15-1 is at home.
Yeah.
And this 17th is going to end the homestand. They'll play 27 of their last 44 on the road.
Yikes.
So they'll have a chance to back up whatever they are after Wednesday's game, if there is a Wednesday game. 3 straight road trips will help them if they can pick up at least a couple of victories, but it's also going to level out when they get to Southern Conference play because the RPI is going to drop down, just like with Georgia Southern. That 13, it's not going to stay there regardless of how much the Eagles win because the nature of the opponents and the average RPI is going to continue to bring you down a little bit.
So a 6 o'clock scheduled first pitch on Wednesday. Again, make sure you stay tuned to @GSAthletics_BSB on Twitter and all the social media platforms. We will keep you updated as well on the Georgia Southern Sports Network social medias of what the game on Wednesday, if it happens, when it happens, all of the if and whens. And then Georgia Southern will head up the mountain to take on Appalachian State. Hard to believe it's Sun Belt Conference baseball time already.
March and Boone.
Outside.
Maybe.
But yeah. But it's 5 o'clock the first pitch on Friday, 3 o'clock the first pitch on Saturday, then a high noon first pitch coming up on Sunday.
That's about as high as the noon as you're going to get in this
No
conference.
joke. It's a App State team that has struggled a little bit, but had some pretty good competition in the first part of the season. 6-8 the overall record. They will face a midweek opponent, North Carolina A&T, over in Greensboro, coming up tomorrow. But Georgia Southern looks at a App State team that opened up with the first 2 weekends on the road. They were at Campbell, took 2 out of 3 from the Fighting Camels on opening weekend, fell 8-5 against number 23 Duke up at Durham, North Carolina at Durham Bulls Athletic Park. We're at UNCG, dropped 2 out of 3 to UNCG over in Greensboro. They fell to South Carolina over at Truist Field in North Carolina, in Charlotte rather. Then on the weekend, headed to UNC Wilmington, took 2 out of 3 from UNCW, and then against Davidson at the Kannapolis Intimidators ballpark. That one was postponed, but then just dropped 2 out of 3 to Charlotte. Did salvage the game on Sunday, 9-7 the victory up in Charlotte, North Carolina. But a little bit of struggle for this App State team and trying to, a lot like Georgia Southern, trying to find what the weekend rotation is really going to look like.
That's the area, though, where they've been able to stay in games. They're starting pitching on the weekend. Offensively has always been an issue. It's always cold in Boone. Even when it gets to the warm months, it is still cold in Boone. We know that. And they lost 5 of their regulars from last year's team that picked up their first ever Sun Belt tournament victory, shutting out Texas State as part of pool play. So if they would have beaten Louisiana, it would have been Georgia Southern and App State playing in the semifinals instead of the Cajuns winning that game and setting up what was another epic battle between those two for Georgia Southern to get back to Championship Sunday. But Tyler Tuthill is a lefty that nobody in this league has seemed to figure out. He is as funky can be. He does have some control issues, but you can't get a hit off of him. You just can't find where the baseball is. What's helping their rotation right now is a guy that was a reliever, hardly used for 2 years at Virginia Tech, and Xander Hamilton. He's got 41 strikeouts in 4 starts. So do the math. He's been quite good in 4 starts. Now, Trey Tuish and Jason Kornatzer have alternated that Sunday role, but the starting pitching and having Eli Ellington in the back end, who Georgia Southern couldn't figure a way to hit in those 3 games in Statesboro last year, if they can have a lead and get it to the back end with Ellington, they have a shot to beat some teams.
Yeah.
And offensively, despite replacing 5 veteran guys, they've got Philip Cole back. They've got a couple of infused freshmen. They have a chance to make some waves, but they did get picked preseason 10th in this league, so they need to figure some things out on both sides.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised as far as the Sunday starter for this App State team, and I would be shocked if they don't go back to Trey Tuish because he's had a really good start to the season, has made 2 starts on the Sunday, but had to come out of the bullpen as Kornatzer started the game against Charlotte.
Yeah.
Tuish had to come in for 4 or 5 innings, I think it was, in the middle of the game.
And he shut him out.
And he was the reason they kept that lead.
Yeah.
He's got a 1.45 ERA in 4 appearances, the 2 starts, and has struck out 18 and 18 2/3. But the middle bullpen and trying to get it to Ellington is where this team has struggled.
They have to have a big enough lead to be safer about Ellington because he's somebody you can't continue to use for 2 and 3 innings a pop. They did that in Statesboro. They used him in Game 1 on Friday, which was reasonably close, but Georgia Southern, thanks to Tyler Owens, now an assistant coach, got a 3-1 victory. Noah Hall was on their staff at that point, was really good that game through his right-handed changeup, only scored 1 run over 6 innings, went back to Ellington. He finished up the final 3 innings to get the save in that 3-1 victory. If it wasn't him, I don't know who else that they would have gone to because they just did not trust very many people in the back end of that bullpen last year. And one of the guys they lost was from that area. Andrew Papp was a 5-year performer up for Appalachian State. So now it feels like Ellington's just kind of back there by himself. Whatever he needs to do, he's going to do. But their starters have to be that much better considering what's behind them.
You talked about a couple of new additions into the lineup for the Appalachian State Mountaineers. Somebody that might raise some eyebrows. Hunter Bryson is a guy that is either a home run or strikeout, it seems like. He's got 7 hits on the year. 4 have been long balls and 16 strikeouts on the season. And so he's somebody that definitely has the thump. But if he's not thumping, he's walking back.
And one of those is a grand slam against South Carolina. So it's proven that he can do it against opponent you're stepping up in scale against. The guy that we haven't mentioned yet, and I feel bad we haven't, is Luke Drumheller, who's going to be a 4-year starter at second base. He had that 5-double game as a freshman against Furman. Everybody put their attention on him. He had better than 300 that year. He is their best hitter, but they've also got to figure a way, what are you going to build around him so they can find a way to score the most runs possible.
Yeah, he's their best hitter, but it always seems like whoever App's best hitter is struggles out of the gate until Sun Belt Conference play. Drumheller this year, a sub 200 average rather, but
yeah, it's not going to last.
And no,
last.
It seems like every year App has a guy that is arguably or is the best hitter in their lineup that bats $150 in non-conference play. Then when Sun Belt Conference play comes around, you can't get him out.
I want to say that's happened to Alex Lashock. I want to say it happened to Kendall McGowan. Those are 2 guys that aren't there anymore, but the slow start becomes success in Sun Belt Conference play. It hasn't translated to postseason yet because, remember, there were 4 years that App State didn't even go to the postseason tournament.
Yeah.
That's when there was a different format, but they've been the last 2. They lost their play-in game in 2019 in Conway to the Ragin' Cajuns. It was pool play last year. They shut out Texas State, needing to beat the Cajuns to get to the semis, but Louisiana won that game. As Tuthill actually almost went the distance. He gave up the pinch hit grand slam to Ben Fitzgerald. We were there to watch that. I feel like this is a team that can still get you, and it's their first home series in conference play. They know how to deal with the cold.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Georgia Southern playing in something similar this past weekend doesn't give them a little bit of on-the-job training for what it could be like up on the mountain this weekend.
Yeah, and we've talked about this with the Sun Belt Conference. The conference is so good, and there's so much parity in this league on the baseball side of things that you can't go out and just roll it out there and get a series in Sun Belt play. App is, like you mentioned, picked 10th in the Sun Belt Conference preseason, but this is somebody, if you sleep on an App State, you could be looking at a tough weekend in Boone.
Look what happened to South Alabama last year.
Right.
That was the final series of the regular season where Georgia Southern still had a chance to win the East Division. It's no longer divisional play. Now they're back to just a 12-team league. But South lost the first 2 games of that series up in Boone. Had they lost with a Georgia Southern win, since the Eagles took that series against the Jags, they would have been the East Division champions. But South rallied. They got that final victory. Georgia Southern handled their business against UT Arlington. Eagles ended up getting the number 2 overall seed, and of course they met in the championship, and we know how that went.
So Georgia Southern opens up Sun Belt Conference play against the Appalachian State Mountaineers this weekend. It'll be a 5 o'clock first pitch Friday, 3 o'clock first pitch Saturday, then a high noon pitch on Sunday. On Wednesday, Georgia Southern expecting to go to Mercer to take on the Mercer Bears for a 6 o'clock first pitch at Ortho Georgia Park, and it just coming out on D1 Baseball.
Didn't even know that.
That Mercer Baseball, it just came out 13 minutes ago.
Okay.
Mercer Baseball has landed on the Week 4 Dean's List for D1 Baseball. Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt doing a fantastic job with that outlet. A 15-1 start, the best start in program history. Wins over number 8 FSU and number 10 Georgia Tech, and 58 runs last weekend. That'll do it.
Guess that'll. Yeah,
Maybe they were listening and got all that. I doubt it.
One thing we've got to cover before we finish. Congratulations on the retirement for rifle coach Sandra Warman.
Yes.
5 years leading the program, All-American Rosemary Kramer winning their first outright championship in the Southern Conference this year. She announced really right after they got back to town that was going to be it. They're going to be staying in the area, though, and we've gushed about her and her program, it seems like, for a couple of months now, but well-deserved and a well-earned retirement for Coach.
No doubt. Congratulations and a happy retirement for Sandra Warman. I cannot wait to see what she does next because there is no telling.
It'll be with some positivity, though.
There is no doubt about it.
Doubt.
For coming up this week on the road for Georgia Southern Baseball, as we will talk to you next Monday for Inside Eagle Nation, but it's going to be a little bit different next Monday because next Monday is Declare Your Major Day on campus for Georgia Southern in the evening. Going to have to move up the Inside Eagle Nation podcast, so we will go, what do you say, noon?
Let's have some lunch.
Have some lunch with some Inside Eagle Nation. Next Monday, we'll do a noon podcast for Inside Eagle Nation. But until next week, for the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, this is Colin Lacy saying so long, everybody.
You've been listening to Inside Eagle Nation, powered by Learfield, the official podcast of Georgia Southern Athletics.